when we talk about like the dollar needing to be defended, and you talk about this desire to keep it as the world's reserve currency and how it's a battle against, I mean, I assume that the Chinese yen is the primary competitor, really, aside from maybe gold. But like, surely shouldn't it just be that the world's reserve currency is like the largest economy and the most stable economy and the one that is the one that, like, basically, I'm saying, why is it the US need to defend the dollar instead of just making the dollar strong? Do you know what I mean?
Okay, there's a problem with fiat currencies. Okay, and if you want to research this, look up uh, Robert Triffin and the Triffin dilemma. He um, he testified before Congress back in the 1960s and actually wrote a book predicting the demise of the US dollar because he said there wasn't enough gold to support the dollar, all the dollars that were being circulated around the world. That's why the United States had to leave the gold standard, the international gold standard, end it in the 1970s. Because whoever has the reserve currency has to export dollars and import manufactured goods, resulting in a trade deficit. Okay. The United States has been running trade deficits for essentially 40 years. Okay. The United States has been living beyond its means, living off the production of other countries while exchanging or giving them increasingly worthless dollars in return. Okay. So China is likely getting very tired of that, right? They've been dumping their US denominated debt. Russia got rid of their US denominated debt. At a certain point, the holder of the world's reserve currency has a trade imbalance so large that the others no longer want to play the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So so basically, you're saying that the fact that, like, as a need to export dollars, there's a need for them to import goods,
Well,
essentially.
that's the exchange,
Okay.
right?
So
When the United States imports goods from China or oil from Saudi Arabia, what do we give them in exchange? Debt. They buy U.S. backed treasuries, securities, right? And also take our dollars. But at some point, they say, no, wait a second. These dollars are losing value. With the more units of currency that are created in a fiat system, the less value they have.
so anyone holding massive dollars debt as we inflate the currency is left with a, like, a diminishing amount of money that they're actually owed because the debt becomes almost worthless.
That's exactly right. And that's the basis of a fiat currency.
Right. Okay. So so how?
Let, let me
Yeah, yeah.
let me expand upon this. I've given this little thought. The fiat dollar is the world's reserve currency. We know that. Each dollar is created by borrowing it into existence. Now, think about that. That's hard to wrap your head around. But every dollar that is created is borrowed into existence in this debt based system. In other words, the currencies themselves are debt, they're debt notes. The debt based system is like a Ponzi scheme that requires perpetual expansion. Otherwise, it will collapse upon itself. Okay. As the money supply grows through this credit expansion and debt accumulation, each currency unit loses purchasing power. As the dollar or any other currency loses purchasing power, people look for alternative investments to preserve their wealth. Gold and silver serve that purpose, Josh. That's why the central banks and treasury officials have a reason to suppress precious metal prices to defend their currencies.
Okay, so then one of the problems that I keep seeing pop up is this the idea that so the central banks are dumping their gold reserves in like the Fed most of all in order to suppress prices of gold. So like, do they have any left? Like,
Well, that's interesting you say that. The Federal Reserve doesn't really have any gold. First of all, by law, the U.S. Treasury is supposed to hold the nation's gold. Okay. Now, somewhere along the line, obviously, the U.S. Treasury has authorized the central bank to lease this gold. And since it hasn't been audited in who knows, in decades, who knows how long, we don't really know how much gold is held by the U.S. Treasury nowadays. Okay. It could be the 8,000 tons as reported, or that gold could be encumbered. Okay. It could be owed to somebody else through all these swaps and leases, you know. So we really don't know. But Congress, now think about this, our elected officials here in the United States will not audit the Federal Reserve or the gold reserves. Now, why would that be? What are they hiding? They don't want to make an issue of it. They don't want to bring any attention to gold. So they avoid it. They ignore it. The U.S. government and the central bank, and along with the bullion banks, are in a symbiotic relationship, okay? They scratch one another's backs. The Congress deficit spends. The Federal Reserve conjures the money out of thin air, and lends it to the federal government. So they're in this symbiotic relationship. They need one another. They're dependent on one another. They can't exist without one another. Plus, they can point fingers at one another if something goes wrong. That's why the Federal Reserve was created in the first place. So Congress wouldn't have to take responsibility. So the U.S. Treasury wouldn't have to be responsible. They've delegated the money-making authority to the Federal Reserve.
Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment for us in the comments below. Let me know what you thought and if you'd like to see more of this from the show. Thank you, and we'll see you again next time.